Hello everybody and welcome back to the United Stand. It is Monday morning, the day after the day before, and to start you off on your Monday, we have an exclusive sale update with the one and only Ben Jacobs. Ben, thank you so much for spending your morning with us and making yourself available to be here and chat all things Man United sale with us.
Good morning, good to be back.
Yeah, it's really good to have you on. Obviously, yesterday was a very controversial day for Manchester United. It was a frustrating day for a lot of the fans, obviously losing the game, and then there was a lot of drama around it as well. And a lot of the fans do believe one of the reasons that game was lost is due to back of funding by the Glazers in this transfer market, getting Amrabat in late, not going and getting the targets that Erik Ten Hag necessarily wanted, ending up with Maguire and Johnny Evans as a centre-back pairing when Ten Hag always wanted a centre-back, and a lot of fans unhappy and frustrated. And coming off the back of the story that broke that the Glazers have decided to take the club off the market, a lot of fans are sitting here thinking, wow, could this get any worse? But Ben, could you give us some reassurances? To your knowledge, is the club still on the market for buyers to buy Manchester United?
Yeah, that's my understanding. It's funny, isn't it? We've heard in the last few weeks that Qatar are going to win in October and then Manchester United are not going to sell now that the window's shut. So effectively, that's two completely different positions. And the reality, as frustrating as it is to Manchester United fans to hear, is that the most likely two scenarios are, guess what? Either a Qatar win, a outright sale at the right price, or a no sale. And I've said this many times. I think the last time that I came on, I pointed out that from Qatar's perspective, and we should make it very clear that it is only their perspective, they believe that their main rival, in inverted commas, is a no sale, because ultimately this is either going to come down to money, the right price is going to hit, and all six siblings will leave, or alternatively, they may decide that the club in their eyes is going to be worth more going forward. So no sale may happen. Now, we should make it clear what a no sale is, because it's not, this process was a waste of time. We've strung everyone on for 9 months, although that is what it will feel like to the groups and some fans. No sale can take a few different forms. One could be that they put the club on the market at a later date and start sounding out suitors. Two could be that they do choose to end this process, but they take some kind of financing, because if they are even to stay until, let's say, 2025 and put the club on the market at a future date, they're going to have to invest in the football club. And how do you do that if you're not going to partner with some kind of financer? So this is where it's important to stress that there's been lots of different groups in this process, not just Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Sheikh Jassim. We have Oaktree, we have Aries, we have Carlisle. And whereas some of these different organizations or groups are prepared to take a small stake in the club, some are also willing to just finance or do equity-based deals. And that means that the Glazers do have more than just two options. So I think the situation is, at the moment, and unfortunately again, because it feels like every update is sort of a non-update, but don't shoot the messenger, the situation is that right now, not many people involved in the process on many different sides think that anything has changed. Those close to the sellers believe that the process is still ongoing. Those close to the people that are running the process feel like they are having engagement to the point where nobody from the Glazer family has told them to stop negotiating. And the groups have not been informed that they're out of the process. They're waiting for further communication. So now the transfer window is shut. Of course, we need some clarity. But I don't think it's as definitive as a no sale, and I don't think it's definitive as Qatar have won. And that's unfortunate for the fans who are sick and tired of hearing that X, Y, or Z might happen. They just want answers, and they want their owners to be transparent about the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Hit the nail on the head there. That's what we want. We want transparency and we want them to sell, ideally. But obviously, you know, you don't make that decision. You just tell us the news. But thank you for updating us on that one. Chris Johnson at Ventures member for 1 month. How come there was reports that the Glazers no longer selling? What is the real truth? Great content as always. We're bringing you Ben's report on this. So this is, you can take what Ben says is his report. Chris Johnson at Ventures says, how come that we've read that one out. And Liam Monberg says, my biggest fear is jail, but I take 6 life sentences if I had the chance of meeting the Glazers. Interesting super chat. Thank you there for your comments. But Ben, what I wanted to ask you next is, with the report that came out that the Glazers were going to take the club off the market, there was a figure in that report that said that the Glazers won £10 million in order to sell the club. Is that figure correct? Because that seems like a lot of money when we were told around 6 or 7 billion initially.
Not to my knowledge. I think it's probably fair to say that if they're being ambitious, and some would say greedy going forwards into 2025 and beyond, they might think that the club can grow to that number. And actually, that's not a new number, because when the Chelsea owners came in and brought the club for 2.5 billion, they said that within 10 years, they thought that Chelsea could get somewhere close to that number. But right now, highly ambitious, because when you're trying to get that number, you don't just need a big brand like Manchester United with a great fan base. You also need success on the field. You need consistent Champions League football, and you need a modern football club with strong foundations. So that means that to get to that number, you have to spend. You have to renovate Carrington. You have to sort out what you're going to do with Old Trafford in terms of developing it and modernising it. And you also have to be the kind of club that regularly wins trophies, not just every other season, not every 5 seasons, not with uncertainty. If you're going to be in the Champions League, you'd have to be in the new expanded Club World Cup on a regular basis and for many years to come. So 10 billion is ambitious. But the reason why my sources say that that number is not accurate within this process is simply because we're 9 months into a process and everybody is well aware within the process what the offers are. And those offers are nowhere near 10 billion. So if you wanted 10 billion and that was your position throughout, even I would say if you wanted 8 billion and that was your position throughout, this process would have been over months ago, because nothing that's been offered is anywhere close. If you were going to sell a car and you wanted 20,000 for that car and you wasted 9 months negotiating with people that you knew had offered you less than 10,000 for that car, then think of all the legal fees that are basically being chucked down the drain. Think of all the time that's being chucked down the drain. Think of all the stress that's being chucked down the drain. Think of all the backlash that's being chucked down the drain. It's a complete waste of time. So we wouldn't have got to 5 Qatar bids unless effectively the number that Qatar were offering was within reason something that had turned the 6 Glazers' heads to the point where they were prepared to engage. They were prepared to go to Nasser Al-Khalifi and say, try and get them to up the offer. And it's the same with Jim Ratcliffe. They've been talking about not formative things or broad topics. They've been speaking about in-depth aspects of a potential transaction at the latter end. And you just don't do that if you're 5 billion apart, because that's an astonishing gap. So, whereas I think that 10 billion could be something the club grows into over time, and I can understand why the Glazers might think Manchester United's value would go up rapidly with investment, with the Club World Cup, with the World Cup in America in 2026, where there's commercial opportunities, with the Saudi Pro League expanding. That might not seem like a factor, but as that expands, there'll be commercial opportunities in Saudi Arabia for big brands like Manchester United as well. So there is a lot of earning opportunities, but the farce of it all is that they may be putting value on lots of different things, but to get to that value, you have to look after your football club, which means if they stay, they have to invest in the football club to get to that value. And if they go, they have to let somebody come in sooner rather than later. Otherwise, there's actually a chance that the value of Manchester United Football Club, if they wait, won't go up, it will go down.
Yeah, that's completely, I completely agree with you on that. But you speak about there the investment that the Glazers could get, and you speak about the potential money up for grabs from the Club World Cup and all these other competitions, and the Champions League having more money put into it, Saudi Pro League. But there's been a lot of people talking about the fact that the Glazers right now, it doesn't feel like there's any money left. Like, financial fair play is literally at a point where we had to offer a loan deal for Amrabat, who Erik ten Hag really wanted. They've not invested in the stadium. It's leaking. It needs investment. The training ground needs upkeep. And we saw Gary Neville speaking yesterday on Sky Sports about how he thinks that the Glazers are going to be forced into selling his club just to the fact that there is nothing left. What's your stance on that? Is that where we're at right now, where this is probably why we've entered this sale process, because they would have to have something to continue to own this football club?
Well, the strange thing is, if the Glazers were sweating on finances and forced into a sale, you would have thought that they would have been forced into it whilst the window was open before or at the end of the season even, because they've gone through another window and spent. And that's not ideal if you're outgoing. So the fact that we're now at the end of the window and the Glazers are still in charge is very surprising if that theory is correct. With financial fair play, yes, budgets are tight, but ultimately financial fair play works in cycles. Manchester United are in the Champions League, and as a consequence, you may find another good season and there's a little bit more leeway. The other thing with financial fair play is that it can be based on outgoings, and also on top of all of that, you can choose to spend more in one cycle and you will not necessarily be in breach, but then it can come back to haunt you in another window. And I think my club, Leicester, found this where they spent and spent and spent because they were performing above their expectation, and that was all great, and the success came. And then 3 or 4 windows later, it caught up with them, and they were suddenly in a position where they had to sell Wesley Fofana to Chelsea, and then going forwards, they barely could bring in a player, and they ended up going down. Of course, that scenario is not going to happen to Manchester United, but what can happen is you can choose to spend more in one window, and then eventually, if the success doesn't come, which is why it's a risk-reward strategy, financial fair play catches up with you and you're entirely handcuffed. So there's a very fair chance that if the Glazers were to stay and continue in this manner and not bring in financing, which is why I think that if it's a so-called no sale, it will be no sale with financing rather than just a straight no sale. But if they continue down this line, this window will be fine.
Yeah. Is Ben still there with us? I think he's little pause. He's had a little freeze moment. I don't know if Ben's Wi-Fi might have gone down a little bit there. I think he was speaking about how if there was a no sale, it would be a no sale with financing. Greg, if you could just let me know maybe if Ben comes back in the room with us there. I'm not sure if his Wi-Fi maybe has gone off a little bit there, but we'll try and get Ben back because I was in the middle of a really good update with Ben there, and I do want to ask him a little bit about the Glazers' relationship with Qatar and what that would mean going forward, because if the Glazers do burn bridges in Qatar, that would be a bad business move for them. So I did want to ask about that as well, and was talking there a little bit about the financial fair play. But we'll try and get Ben back on the Zoom and bring you back in. But for now, I'll just carry on the show on the back of what Ben said. Andrew Lineker did speak there about how, he's put a super chat in, how do the Rain Group get paid if there is no sale? They'll still get paid because obviously they've done a lot of work for the Glazers, and the Glazers are in a position where they can pay them very well. They won't get as much as what they would get if there is a sale, I would assume, but they will still get paid on the back of it. But that's something that we could definitely ask Ben. But I'll definitely see if we can get him back on. His connection did go, which is so frustrating for us. But here we are. He was speaking there about what the good thing is. Well, it's not a good thing because it means that the Glazers are still at the club. But if there is a no sale, there will be investment. What's frustrating about that is that means the club goes into more debt, and we're already in a shed load of debt. But what the good thing is that we can actually put money into the stadium, into facilities. But with the Glazers there, I don't trust it to happen. So for me, anything that isn't Qatar at this moment in time is a massive red flag. It's a massive red flag because there's so many cons that come with it. The Glazers are still making the decision. We're still running a position where we're a business, not a football club, and we're plunged into a lot of debt. So that is frustrating. But as you can see from what Ben said at the start, we are going to get somewhere with this. The club would not have been up for sale for this long if there wasn't something there with this. It just wouldn't have happened, and there will be something there with this. There was false reports that the club was taken off the market. The 10 billion price tag isn't true as well, because if that was true, we wouldn't have been in this sale process. But we're at the point now where it is going to be touch and go, and whether the Glazers are going to sell is still yet to be seen, but it does look like it is likely that is going to happen. It's just a waiting game. But Ben is back in the room with us. Ben, thank you for coming back. A little bit of a technical difficulty, but we got you back. We were speaking then about, I think we were speaking about the financial fair play situation.
Yeah, look, with the financial fair play, I was saying it works in cycles. So you can spend more, as I think Manchester United probably did this window, but eventually it can catch up with you. And Newcastle is the example that I was giving, where Eddie Howe's constantly said that the club's restricted by financial fair play and that they can't spend that much. But if you actually crunch the numbers, they could have spent 600 million in one window, but that would have covered them for the cycle. So then they'd have had to spend 0 in January and 0 next summer. And the cycles are important because it gives you a bit of flexibility to spend more in one window, but eventually it will catch up on you. And I think this is the challenge for Manchester United. It's always tight. So if you are going to spend that money, for example, on Rasmus Højlund, which was a little bit more than Manchester United had planned for at 90 million euros total package, then what if they next summer need a flagship striker who's experienced, like that kind of profile of Harry Kane that they were looking at? Can they then afford it? And eventually you will run out of money unless you get consistent success or outgoings that offset the spending or commercial deals. So when your club's not as modern, you have less ability to earn. And this is also why Chelsea are spending and their project is being entirely revamped, because by about 2030, they'll have a modern stadium like Tottenham's and they can have income from that. They'll hope for regular Champions League football and they can get better things like shirt sponsorship deals from that. They'll have their academy that they can cash in on. Then you look at Manchester United and you say, huge brand, worth more on paper, despite the foundational issues at the football club.
Is Ben gone there again, Greg?
But perhaps not making as much money as Chelsea's, for example.
Oh, he's back.
Then that kind of thing can be a bit of an issue.
Yes, Ben, I think we get your point of view on that, the fact of the financial fair play and the way it works, which is really interesting to know about. I just wanted to ask you next about the Glazers' relationship with Qatar, because being in this sort of deal with the Sheikh Jassim, who obviously is a big name in Qatar, and going into this sort of deal with them and, you know, it going on for this long, what is their sort of relationship? And are Qatar still confident on this deal? And are they not starting to become impatient with this? He's gone again. Oh, it's so frustrating. Ben needs to sort his internet out. But yeah, Ben, he's gone again. So I'll just continue again. Sorry about this, guys. We are trying to bring the best update for you. Ben was doing super well there and giving us the information we wanted. But unfortunately, the internet just isn't working. Tony Scrimminger says, Ben, if fans no-show and right at home games and stayed committed to the cause, would this lower Man United's value enough to force the Glazers to panic sell? We spoke about that one before, and I don't think it will. The Glazers don't care what Man United fans think. Ben has spoken on that before. Ultimately, all they care about is money. If there's enough backlash, obviously they're going to think about it, but their be-all and end-all decision doesn't come down to what the fans think, unfortunately. But I still think it's really, really important to keep showing that and keep showing the Glazers out protests and keep that going until they're out of the club. Glenny Boy says they think they can get more in the future. The risk is only 2 bidders may have gone elsewhere by 25 and others will be put off by the crying wolf. Yes, very, very good super chat there, Glenny Boy. I'll bring that back up if we do manage to get Ben back in, but I'll let you know on that. But yeah, I think because Ben's Wi-Fi is letting us down a little bit there, we're just going to carry on with the show with myself. Really frustrating because I did want to ask about Qatar's relationship with the Glazers, because I think what a lot of people don't think about is how much power that holds, because the Glazers they have multiple business ventures. They're in Qatar a lot of the time for the cricket. They have connections in Qatar. It's a big place to do business transactions. And Sheikh Jassim is a very powerful man within Qatar. To burn them bridges would not be good for the Glazers in future projects. It would not be. Business, a lot of the time, it's all about relationships. It's all about who you know. It's all about what kind of strong relationships you have with people. To string on Sheikh Jassim for 10 months and then just say, sorry, no, we're not selling, after kind of, continuing that, it's going to annoy him. These sort of people, and they're not used to not getting what they want. They're multi-billionaires. They're not used to not getting what they want. It will frustrate them if they've been led down an alley that is eventually going to be blind. So this is another reason why I still see the Glazers selling this football club, and I do think it will go in Qatar's way, whether you want that or not, because I just think it's such a strong relationship that you want to maintain, and they are offering the best price. And like Glenny Boy just said, when you think about where we're at and you think about right now, who is there right now? There's two parties and there's only one realistic party. There's only one realistic party there that is going to offer the price that is good enough for them to sell. And if they kind of take the club off the market and they go again, who's to say they won't have moved on and bought something else? And there isn't that big bidder there that they want. But we're bringing Ben back in one more time. We're giving it one more go. Ben, sorry about this. I know there's a little bit of a Wi-Fi issue, but I do want to ask you, this is really something that I do want to get into conversation about, and it is about the Glazers' relationship with Qatar, because obviously Sheikh Jassim is a very powerful man. There is business relationships involved. The Glazers has other business projects other than just Manchester United. It's a very good connection and relationship to have. Does that kind of encourage a sale in the sense of Sheikh Jassim, if he's been on this, road to buy Manchester United for so long and it eventually turns out to be a blind alley, he's not going to be a happy man, I assume, and might become impatient. So is this another factor that could steer in Qatar's favour, the relationship that is basically on the line at the moment?
Not necessarily. I mean, if we take Sheikh Jassim as a private individual, as he's always been billed, then he's trying to buy the football club on behalf of 9-2 Foundation as supposedly a Manchester United fan. And if that is accurate and correct, then the wider Qatar influence and potential business relationship with the Glazers shouldn't be a factor. That's one way of looking at it. If we look at it the other way, then there's lots of senior Qatar people involved who are highly significant in this process. And Nasser Al-Khalifi was obviously approached to help kind of broker negotiations. And that tells you that there is a wider relationship that could benefit the Glazers from a business perspective. But I think that if there was this strong relationship and direct relationship between the Glazers and the wider Qatar stakeholders, for example, Nasser Al-Khalifi or even the Emir, then the deal would already have been done. And that's the big surprise in all of this, that if, as a lot of people have suspected, the wider Qatar picture is influencing the Sheikh Jassim bid, then why haven't they already just paid what it takes to buy the football club? Because money's not really an object and they don't like losing. So I sense that there's maybe a split between Sheikh Jassim, 9-2 Foundation, that money, that strategy, and now wider Qatar stakeholders who are frustrated and even potentially distancing themselves from the bid because things are not progressing at the moment. And at the back of my mind is still one very important aspect between Qatar and the Glazers or Rain Group, and that is that virtually nobody involved in the process has met Sheikh Jassim, has spoken to Sheikh Jassim, and originally all of the conversations were via intermediaries. So those who are selling are quite frustrated by the Qatar bid. They're not entirely sure what the foundation is. They're not entirely sure who the listed directors will be if they why the Glazers reached out to Nasser Al-Khalifi, who's always said that he represents QSI and he's not involved. And they reached out to him and they said, can you help us basically broker a deal or at least mediate talks to get to some kind of reasonable? Tells you either that Al-Khalifi is behind it and that it really is QSI and it really is government related, and that if successful, we'll see the true picture and therefore we need to put scrutiny on that. Or it tells you that Sheikh Jassim is Sheikh Jassim. He's a private individual. No one knows that much about him. And as a consequence, the Glazers went to someone they do know in Nasser Al-Khalifi. Because remember, it wasn't Al-Khalifi once the first bid was placed. It wasn't Al-Khalifi that said, let me help. Let me win it for you, Sheikh Jassim. It was the Glazers that went to Al-Khalifi and said, can you help us? So it is very possible that the Glazers don't really know that much about Sheikh Jassim, so they've gone to Nasser Al-Khalifi. And if QSI had tried to buy the football club originally, it might have been a lot smoother, it might have been a lot quicker. But this is the sort of irritation, I think, from those close to the Glazers, that they've got this supposedly rich Qatari, they've got this supposed 9-2 Foundation with a Manchester United link, and yet they don't really know what they plan to do with the club, who they are, what they can genuinely spend. because it's still all smoke and mirrors. And every single time a conversation has happened with Rain Group throughout the process, Sheikh Jassim hasn't been on that call. It's been his advisors from Bank of America, and it's been other intermediaries. So it feels like quite a complicated structure. And that may tell you that there's somebody else behind it that we don't yet know about. But either way, it has to now come to a head. And if the Glazers have got a strong relationship with Qatar, they should use that strong relationship and they should complete the sale as soon as possible. And if they don't have a strong relationship with Qatar and they don't know who they are, then kick them out of the process. And that's what Qatar have always said, that if our bid's so bad, if you don't know who we are, and if you don't like who we are, and if you don't want to do business with us, then don't do business with us. Take the Jim Ratcliffe offer and move on. And I think that's the frustration in this entire sale process. We've still been left in limbo at the moment because every single person involved, whether they're a financer, a minority investor, a controlling group looking like Sir Jim Ratcliffe for 69%, or of course, Sheikh Jassim, who wants an outright sale, they have no idea what's going on. And if those that are actually bidding for a stake in the football club don't know what's going on, it tells you how either badly the Glazers have run the process or how secretively the Glazers have run the process, which is not a good look either way.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. It'll be very interesting to see how things kind of develop going forward. But we had a super chat in while you kind of was, dipped out a little bit before, and we had a super chat in talking about how realistically there's talk of the Glazers wanting a big fee to sell this football club. But right now there really is only one seller that are willing to give them an out-and-out full sale at a very, very good fee. If they took it off the market and then maybe decided to do it at a later date, there's a big possibility that Qatar might go, well, Sheikh Jassim, his foundation might go and buy a different football club or might not be interested when they come back round again. And who's to say that, worldwide there's going to be someone there that is willing to pay the money? So surely it would be a huge risk to the Glazers to maybe make that decision to wait.
Not necessarily a huge risk in their eyes, because I think they're confident enough, whether rightly or wrongly, that they believe if they don't sell the football club, if they choose to stay, and it is still an if, that it will rise in value anyway. So maybe they won't want to put it back on the market. But the risk of putting it back on the market, I think, as I've said before, is it's not eBay. You can't take it off the market and immediately relist it within an hour or a day. You're going to have to wait a minimum of 2 years. So if you wait until 2025 and the expanded World Cup, or 2026 and the World Cup in America, then when you put it back on the market, every single person will, one, know that they're not going to get the football club for probably under 6.5 or 7 billion, because people in the financial industry will all be clear that if these offers are 5.5 billion and you wait 3 years, everyone will know categorically that they're going to have to pay significantly more. And then are you going to get the same amount of suitors? Are you going to get less suitors even? And there's not that many suitors involved in the process at the moment. And on top of all of that, everybody is aware that this process has been painful, it's been secretive, it's had narratives and counter narratives. So is that going to put people off? So there's absolutely no way, because I've asked them, that the 9-2 Foundation would return in 2 years. It's now or never. If Qatar are not successful now, they're not coming back in 2 years and saying, we've waited 2 years and now we're going to pay 10 billion or whatever they think the asking price is. So I sense if the club is put on the market within the next 2 or 3 years, if, and again, let's stress, if there is a no sale now, that it won't be this process. It won't be a kind of public tender. It won't be seeking lots of different investors, because they'll have learned their lesson that there wasn't that much interest, not because Manchester United isn't an incredible asset. It's just too expensive, and they've priced it out the market to many suitors. So I think that if we did get, and we're only speaking hypothetically, a scenario where the club was put back on the market in a couple of years, it would be more Glazer outreach to an individual group that they thought was interested. And that is more traditional for a takeover, because remember, takeovers don't tend to happen like this, because we've had Chelsea, Rain Group, now Manchester United, Rain Group, and Liverpool effectively saying that we're seeking investment. We've got this warped perception that a takeover is a bidding war. A takeover is controlled by a bank that effectively say, here's your bidding deadline. everyone mad scramble, highest bidder wins. But normal takeovers involve an interested party reaching out to an interested seller and doing a private deal. And if they get to the point where they think that there's something to talk about and start due diligence, they enter into exclusivity, and there's not these other rivals floating around, and it doesn't really take place during the media. So I think that would be how it would happen if they chose to put it on the market again in a couple of years' time. I don't think they could make a statement, even with a push through this again, because why would anyone return back?
Yes, Ben, thank you very much for that update. We actually don't have much time left with you, so I just want to say thank you very much for giving us that update. Really insightful, really good to know about Qatar not being back in 2 years, and thank you for coming on and joining us this morning. No matter the technical difficulties, it's great to have you update, so thank you, Ben. And that is Ben. I think he ended on a little Wi-Fi glitch, which was very kind of ironic considering the show that we just had. And everyone for sticking around, by the way, through that. Thank you very much, because I know it can be frustrating sometimes when someone's internet's on and off. But we did get some good news there from Ben, and I thought what a really good scoop was the fact that he came out and said he knows, because he's spoken to sources close, that if Qatar do not buy Manchester United this time round, there is absolutely no way that they come back in any other day. It is now or never for them. And for the Glazers, that's a very interesting situation, because right now at this moment in time, there is no one close to offering near what they want for this football club. So how would they know in a 2 years' time there's going to be someone that magically has the magic number that they want? I think there's only one direction this is going down. I might be completely wrong, but on the basis of what I've heard from Ben, from what I know about this football club, my opinion is that they are going to sell it. I think they have to, but get in the chat what you guys think. Tony Marshall says, was that the Wolves game? The smell was horrible from leaking toilets. Wouldn't be surprised if the roof fell off. Would be a disaster to wait longer. I agree with you. Graham Barber says Qatar will bring in backhanded inflated sponsorship deals to increase our financial fair play. That is your opinion. I think they would do it in a business way, I would say. I think they will bring in more sponsorship, but legitimately. And Manchester United could, they would have the knowledge how to bring in sponsorship that is legitimate, that we could kind of work into our financial fair play. Toby Scriminger says, Beth, you're amazing. Love your work and your dedication. Thank you very much for that comment. And Chris Johnson Adventure says, in my opinion, I feel someone who is trying to stop us having the takeover. If this was happening to any other club, it would be sorted. And I'm glad that we will still be up for sale. Chris, thank you for your super chat. I think this is going to happen. The article that came out, that said that the Glazers are taking the club off the market, I respect to who the journalist that broke that news, but I just don't believe that is the case. They might have had sources on that have claimed that, because that might be what they want to put out there. Maybe to increase bids, maybe so they have a last minute, final hour bid that they can go off. Maybe they want to encourage Qatar to maybe up the price a little bit more. But I honestly, from everything that we're hearing, from the financial fair play struggles to the fact Qatar won't be there again in 2025, from the fact that the Glazers have to wait 2 years to sell the club again, and the state that the club is in now itself, I just think the Glazers have to sell. I really do. And that is the basis that we can go off. And as Ben said, it'll either be a sale to Qatar, that's the only sale they can go, or it'll be a no sale with investment. Because remember, Sir Jim is investment, because he's keeping the Glazers in the club. So it is technically investment. He'll have the majority of the club. That is the only difference. But the Glazers will still be there. So the only full sale on the table is Qatar, and I think that is the route they'll have to go down. If it is a no sale, it'll be a no sale with investment because of financial fair play. So remember that, everyone. We are going to talk a little bit about Sancho and about the game yesterday before we wrap up the show, because I've seen a lot of news going on and going round about Sancho and Erik ten Hag. I've seen people on completely different sides. If anyone tuned into the fan forum yesterday, I did get a little bit irate. I was losing my temper slightly, not completely, because you'll know when I lose my temper, which I wouldn't on air with you guys, but it really, really, really frustrated me, that statement by Jadon Sancho. It really did. And there will be some people that are in the camp of Jadon Sancho he's obviously frustrated. He's better than Anthony. He should be playing. There's people in that camp. There's people in the camp of Ten Hag shouldn't have said that about Jadon Sancho publicly. And then there's people in the camp of Erik Ten Hag has tried multiple different ways to get the best out of Sancho. If a player isn't training hard enough, what is he supposed to say in that instance? He's come out and done the right thing. There is two different camps in this situation. And someone just put a hilarious comment in that Ben needs to get an Ethernet cable. Do you know what? I'm going to get an Ethernet cable for Ben. I'm going to mail it to him in whatever sort of place he's in. He's always in different places. And I'm going to get him an Ethernet cable to connect to the router because I think it's only fair. He does all these shows for us. The least he can get in return is an Ethernet cable. We'll get him that gift from the United stand. I saw admin say who's using Ben's Netflix, and that literally made me giggle on that one. But no, Benny's all over the place, which is why his Wi-Fi is constantly going down. But Sancho playing Call of Duty in Ben's house. That's been the rumours before as well, as why he's been late to training. I'm joking, obviously that is just alleged. But on the Sancho situation of where we're at now, in my opinion, you've been brought into this football club by a different manager. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer bought you for £73 million. By the way, there has been multiple. I actually am going to get them up because I want to get it up because I think it's. I need to bring up my receipts because I've always backed Sancho, but I've lost my head a little bit with this one. But there has been multiple reports in the past about Jadon Sancho being difficult to deal with in certain situations. So, first one, Dortmund fine Jadon Sancho 86k and force him to train alone in the pouring rain for repeatedly turning up late to training, October 2019. Exclusive, Jadon Sancho's Manchester City future in doubt after he fails to turn up to training on several occasions. Next one, Jadon Sancho reveals he is late for Borussia Dortmund training due to a sleeping problem, but is it because of late-night Call of Duty sessions with Man United stars Marcus Rashford, Paul Pogba and Jesse Lingard? The next one, Sancho's playing time at Euro 2020 was limited until the quarter-finals due to training form. Southgate confirmed that and there was improvement after Sancho's move to Manchester United was agreed. Obviously, sometimes the headlines aren't always correct, and they're not always correct. Oh, here's another one. Exclusive, Jadon Sancho felt humiliated and scapegoated and unprotected by Dortmund post-Bayern loss. And due to Borussia Dortmund public comments. Summer options include, that was from David Ornstein. So there are quite a lot of headlines on this from Jadon Sancho in the past. Obviously headlines can be headlines, sometimes there's no truth in them, but I am a firm believer there is no smoke without fire. There is no smoke without fire, and something starts to enter my mind. Is there a reason that Pep got rid of him? Because I have no doubt in my mind that Sancho has the talent to reach the top level. I have no doubt in my mind that Sancho has the talent to play first-team football on a regular basis for Manchester United. I have no doubt in my mind that he's a very, very talented football player. I think he's on his day, he's brilliant. So what's holding Jadon Sancho back? Is it his training? Is it his attitude? These are questions that now start to come into play because, back to my original point, you bought for £73 million by a manager that isn't here anymore. Erik Ten Hag didn't buy you, you aren't his player. And automatically, whether it's right or wrong, you kind of do have to work hard to prove to the manager that you should be in this team. Just because you brought in for a certain amount of money and you're on a certain amount of wage doesn't mean you're automatically guaranteed a starting place in this team because you're at Manchester United. So, a question I ask is, how many man of the match performances have you seen from Jadon Sancho since he's been at Manchester United for 3 years? How many? I don't think I could name one. I think there's one performance, I think the Liverpool game where he scored that goal to start off the winning run for Manchester United was a really good moment for Jadon Sancho. But apart from that, have you seen one man of the match performance from Jadon Sancho? Can you name 5 top class performances from Jadon Sancho? No. So you based on that, why does he guarantee us a place in the starting 11? You don't. Erik Ten Hag isn't just picking on a certain player. That's not the way he's going to go about it. I think if he was going to do that, he would have done it from the start. Erik Ten Hag put his arm around Sancho. He used the arm round the shoulder approach with Sancho when he sent him off and gave him 3 months off because he had issues behind the scenes. It was exactly the right thing to do. He nurtured him back in. He took him away from the spotlight. He refused to comment on him. He brought him back, giving him game time, little bits of game time here and there to kind of ease him back into the team. Erik ten Hag has tried the softly approach, arm around the shoulder bit of management, but now he's done that and he expects at least the bare minimum a good training performance. And if my manager's coming out and saying he's not selected because there wasn't a good training performance, I believe my manager. Why? What is his purpose in lying? Our front line isn't performing. He needs players. If Jadon Sancho is good enough to play for Man United at the first team, is going to produce something, Erik ten Hag would need that right now. There's no reason for him to come out and say Jadon Sancho's not training correctly if that's not the case. So I believe my manager on this. I believe it. And when you're getting paid, no matter what you're getting paid, but he is getting paid over 300 grand a week. If you're getting paid over 300 grand a week at Manchester United and you have the honour of putting on the Manchester United shirt every week, the least you expect is intensity. Is the top level of training, and that obviously isn't what we've seen. And a lot of people on here have been talking about, oh well, Pellistri should get more starts. Ten Hag picked Pellistri over Jadon Sancho in the squad yesterday, clearly because he's been putting more of the hard yards in training. Because we've seen time and time again Sancho come off the bench when, in my personal opinion, I would have rather brought on Pellistri because he's the more senior player. Ten Hag has given Jadon Sancho opportunities. He's not taken them, in my opinion. In pre-season, he was good, but it wasn't anything to say, oh, he has to start for Man United at the start of next season. It's come, like, there was some good performances from him, fair enough, in pre-season. But we're talking about the actual season here. Has there ever been a performance from Sancho where you're like, he has to start next game? He has to be starting for Man United? I don't think there is. So I'm going to back my manager on this. I believe Erik ten Hag when he says a player hasn't been training at the right levels. And I've got to say, to release a statement that quickly is so disrespectful to your team and your manager, because one, we've just lost, and this creates much more fire around Manchester United and puts us in a much more difficult position. It goes completely against your manager, completely against the manager, and causes problems in the dressing room. And you've basically, with that statement, called your manager a liar. And that is just completely out of order. Whether or not Jadon Sancho could be thinking, I have trained hard, I've done everything I can, I should be playing for this team, like the front line can't even score a goal, why aren't I in this team? He can think that all he wants, and he might have the right to think it, but you don't come out and call your manager a liar after a loss against Arsenal. It's just not the right way to do it. There's no professionalism in there whatsoever. Do you think Phil Foden sits there and thinks, I should be playing for Man City? He probably does every single week, because he's a very, very, very talented player. And yes, City are full of talented players, but Foden performs, gets assists, and then Pep drops him the next game. That happened the other week. Foden was the best player on the pitch the other week, and he got dropped the next game. This happens in football sometimes when your manager doesn't fancy you or he fancies something different tactically. So does Phil Foden come out and say Pep Guardiola's a liar, I should be playing for Manchester City? No, he doesn't. I saw him do an interview on Sky Sports and he says, I'm not going to lie to you, it's very, very difficult not playing first team football, but all I can do is train really hard every week and do my best. That's the way you approach it. And Ten Hag has proven time and time again with his team, if you do the right things behind the scenes, you train hard and you take your opportunities, he will give you them. Garnacho got called out for not having the right attitude. He trained hard, he did the right things, and now Ten Hag absolutely loves Garnacho. He's got his arm around his shoulder, he's coming on in games, he's starting him, he's defending to the press saying he can start games. He loves him because he's done the right things. Pellistri wasn't in the pecking order at Manchester United, and a lot of people said he should get more game time. But Erik ten Hag has constantly praised his training behind the scenes. He's told him he wants to stay because he likes the player. He's given him his reward. Kobbie Mainoo is clearly training very, very hard. He started him, I know he's only in pre-season, but he started him over senior players against Real Madrid in pre-season, was giving him opportunities against Arsenal as well in pre-season, and he was planning to give him a big role this season, an 18-year-old. He took his opportunity, he trained hard. He's not just suddenly one day decided to wake up and think, do you know what? I don't care that Jadon Sancho's training really hard and he's a really good player. I'm going to lie about him and I'm not going to pick him. He's not done that. He's not done that because he's not. He's proven time and time again, if you work hard and you take your opportunities, he will give you them. And he's shown that to the academy as well with the likes of Kobe Mainoo and Garnacho. So apparently people close to Sancho insist that he is doing his best. I hate to say it, but a lot of footballers have people close to them, especially footballers that are on 300 grand a week, that will just say what they want to hear a lot of the time. And we don't know completely the story, but from what I can gather from the characteristics of Erik ten Hag and from what I've seen from Jadon Sancho over his course of his Man United career, I can't sit here and say, I can understand why Jadon Sancho thinks he should be starting because he's been so good for us in the past. And the line, I will continue to fight for this badge. Every player is different, but can anyone name an occasion where Jadon Sancho looked like he was up for a fight? Whenever he plays, to me, it looks like he doesn't want to get his boots dirty. That's how it comes across. And yet Antony has had some poor performances and maybe isn't up to scratch in terms of attacking output, but he leaves it all out there on the pitch every single game. He tracks back, he slides into tackles, he's aggressive. Never, ever in a million years seen that from, say, Jadon Sancho. I don't think I've ever seen him shoulder barge a player. So every player has a different attitude and conducts himself differently, and I'm not saying every player has to be a super aggressive, but that's just from what I can see from the outside looking in, and that's my opinion. And International 2675 says Erik ten Hag clearly has favourites, not given enough of a chance. How is he not given enough of a chance? How is he not given enough of a chance? Erik ten Hag, we bought him as a right winger. Jadon Sancho told Erik ten Hag that his left wing's his favourite position. He's played him on the left. And I'm sorry to say, he's not as good as Rashford or Garnacho. He's not given the output Rashford and Garnacho is given. Because Ten Hag clearly wants a winger on the left that's going to be explosive and is going to give you goal returns. Sancho hasn't done that. He's played on the right, but Antony's his right winger. He's paid 90 million for him, and he clearly has attributes that Ten Hag likes, whether you like it or not. There is an argument there of whether he should be playing ahead of Antony. I get it. I think Sancho could do a better job than Antony in a lot of games, to be honest with you, with the talent he has. But if he's not going to do, Ten Hag is a man of principles, and his principles is, if you're playing for me, you've got to track back and you've got to make a tackle, you've got to help your fullback. Sancho doesn't do that. So maybe Ten Hag says, you know what, Sancho, when you prove to me you can get back and you can make a tackle and help the fullback out, you can be given a run in this team. That's not happened. I'm just trying to think from Erik ten Hag's kind of opinion on here. So this is that, but that is where I think he's coming from Erik ten Hag's point of view. Stick says Foden has decent players in front of him. Antony's the best defensive right winger, apparently. I think Erik ten Hag is a man of principles. He's a man of principles. No matter how good you are, the basics of his game is, if you're playing on the right, you track back and you help out. If Sancho can't meet that requirement, it doesn't matter how good he is, you're not going to play. I think that is where this disagreement has started, and probably Sancho is obviously annoyed because he wants to be in the England squad. It's understandable, but honestly, a lot of the times I would say to these players, look yourself in the mirror. Look yourself in the mirror, and if you can say, if Sancho can look himself in the mirror and he can wholeheartedly say, I have given my all every single time I've come on the football pitch for Man United. I have given my all in training. I have tackled when I've needed to tackle. I have give 100% to track back and help out my fullback. And I have no idea whatsoever why Erik ten Hag might not be playing me. Then fair enough. But I don't think that's the case, to be honest with you. I don't think that's the case. That's just my opinion. And, you know, a lot of people shy away from this subject, but I'm not going to, because that's what I see from the outside looking in. Some breaking news coming out is that Onana is gone to play with the Cameroon national team. Great. Obviously, I'm happy for the player because playing for your international team is obviously a big honour, but it's unfortunate for us because I don't want to be missing Onana when they go and play for AFCON, and it looks like it's going into that direction. And there is a statement coming out that I have been sent, so I'm going to read that out. I bet Erik ten Hag's like, is there anything else? I just hope he is going to go to AFCON if he's back in the Cameroon national team. I just hope this Bayern Day keeper that we've bought is good enough. We know Ten Hag was scouting him from the Ajax days. I just hope he's good enough. There's not really much else we can say. Andre Onana, statement on his return to the Cameroon national team. In the world of football, just like in life, defining moments arise, requiring crucial choices. In recent months, I have been confronted with trials marked by injustice and manipulation. However, my unwavering love and attachment to my homeland, Cameroon, remains intact. My desire to represent my country has never wavered since my youth, and this aspiration remains an inseparable part of my identity. Nothing and no one can shake this conviction. I respond to the call of my nation with unwavering certainty, aware that my return is not only intended to honour my dream, but also to respond to the expectation and support of Cameroonians who deserve a national team determined to shine. Faced with manipulation, lies and abuse of power, I chose to remain faithful to my ideal, proudly representing a country that deserves our sincere commitment. This is the time to unite, to work in harmony for our common good, Cameroon. I would like to salute the government which is working tirelessly to build a Cameroon better and for all. My deepest thoughts go to the Cameroonian people, whom I say thank you very much for their support and whom I look forward to seeing again. Time, the infallible judge of all things, will ultimately enlighten us and reveal the correctness of our decisions. My commitment to Cameroon remains unwavering, and I am determined to play my part to see it prosper. See you on September 12th for our qualification for the next African Football Cup of Nations. So, wow, that is a very, very heartfelt and meaningful statement there. Basically saying, you know, his manager abused his power, lied and manipulated certain stories. Fair play, he's sticking up for his cause. But Onana has Onana has the right to do that. Onana has the right to do that. Because if he feels he has the right to do that, he has the right to do that. And clearly he's right, because he's been called up to his national team. So if Onana had been, you know, the player that he was made out to be, he wouldn't have been called up again. But anyway, and Rob says, and Sancho doesn't. Yeah, that might come across hypocritical, but I'll tell you why. For starters, Onana isn't paid 300 grand a week by his national team. He isn't paid over 350 grand a week by his national team. He's not employed by his international team 350 grand a week to play for them. Second of all, international club football is completely different. Third of all, Onana has proved time and time again his professionalism, his leadership and his ability to leave everything out there on the pitch, and he's had countless professional and top performances. Sancho has been given opportunity after opportunity and hasn't done that. No manager has said about Onana that his training form wasn't up to scratch. The reason why Onana and the international team ended up falling out is because of a disagreement on the play style, not because of levels in training. It's a completely different situation. Onana left the Cameroon squad at the World Cup. Anyway, I will continue with this. I do want to talk about a few positives. And, you know, I can talk about AFCON. This is why we bought a second keeper that Ten Hag really likes, apparently. So I hope Bayern is good enough. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. A lot of people at Dortmund, he was insane. We need to stop holding on to this Dortmund thing. I said it during the show. I have no doubt Sancho has the talent to be a top class player. I've seen it with my own eyes at Dortmund. I have no doubt. If the talent's there, what's holding him back? How many coaches can he blame? There's been Rangnick, there's been Ole, there's now been Ten Hag. So I doubt it's the coaching. Is it the training? Is it the attitude? These are things that need to be looked at. But anyway, I do want to talk about a positive, and that's the fact that Højlund looks like the real deal, everyone. And I know it's only been 30 minutes at the Emirates, but Højlund looks like the real deal. He looks like someone who can pin his centre-backs back, someone who can bully his centre-backs. He's got extreme pace. He's got attributes that you would love in a top-class number 9. He's got the height. He's got the physicality. He throws his body on the line. He looks like the real deal. Yes, he looks raw, but I think there is a monster inside there waiting to come out. So I'm excited for that. And that is completely true. Chatting there, that's a brilliantly constructed statement, shows passion and belief. Exactly. Anyway, guys, kind of been a show that was all over the place. We had the Ben Jacobs update on the sale, which was very interesting and gave us a little bit of a scoop on the fact that Qatar will not come back in for this no matter what. If the Glazers decide now isn't the time to sell, Qatar won't be there when the time comes again. Obviously, we need to talk about the Jadon Sancho situation. And on that situation, actually, there was one last quote that I did want to bring into it because it was from Fabrizio Romano, so he would have had good sources close to this. So Romano says, Ten Hag believes he did his best for Jadon Sancho to help him in a difficult moment last season, and in return he wants him to perform the best way possible, otherwise he's not going to be part of the squad. Jadon Sancho believes there is something else not related to his training performances, and this is why he wasn't selected against Arsenal. Those close to Sancho insist he's doing his best, and they believe it was a different decision. And Ten Hag and some of his Man United staff have not been happy with Jadon Sancho's training levels, and tensions have been circling for a few weeks. On that situation, Sancho believes it's something not related to training performance. What is it then? What is it? What is it? He's not just picking out one player, but anyway. Anyway, this is where we're at, guys. We've got to take the positives from it. Last night against Arsenal was so unfortunate. It was cruel. This is why football can be one of the cruelest sports. It could have easily been 2-1 on a different day. I thought the game plan was done quite well up until the last 10 minutes on the pitch. And there's still massive improvement to do. This is a turning point in the season where I think needs to be met with a response. Man United are in turmoil right now. That Sancho statement did not help things at all. It added fuel to the fire. There's a lot of unrest behind the scenes, and despite we can talk about the Arsenal performance and the game plan being good, at the end of the day we didn't win the game. We've lost 2 games, Spurs and Arsenal away from home. It's not acceptable, and we've got a tough game coming back for the international break. Ten Hag's got a lot of work to do. I want to finish off this show by saying I 100% back my manager. I'm behind Erik ten Hag all the way. I think it will be a disgrace if he ends up being the scapegoat and kind of ends up potentially, getting sacked from Manchester United, which I don't think is going to happen. But if he does, I think it'll be a disgrace. I back Erik ten Hag. I believe in his process. I think he's one of the best things that's happened to this football club in a very, very, very long time. And I said it last night. A lot of these players were used to the soft approach of previous managers, getting away with stuff. We know what Ollie was like. He was a soft manager, and a lot of things. He was a nice guy, but he was a soft manager, and a lot of things went on behind the scenes, and players got away with it. They don't get away with it under Erik ten Hag. They've got a manager in that has principles, and they don't like it. I'm not saying all of the players. I'm saying some, because we've known this for a long time. Mourinho got thrown under the bus by the players for being strict, and this has been a thing that's going on at Man United for a while now. Harry Permin says, why can't these players deal with a real manager? Exactly. But anyway, it's going to be a big week for Erik ten Hag to turn this around. I back my manager. I do think we are seeing progress. I think Højlund is a brilliant addition. I can't wait to see Amrabat. And yeah, Rome wasn't built in the day. He deserves time, and let's see how this unfolds. But thank you, everyone. Make sure you like this video. Please give us a like, because it really does mean a lot to us, and we'll continue to bring you all the updates here on the United Stand. We've got a lot of fun content coming this week. Even though it is the international break, we've still got a lot of fun stuff planned. Thank you to Ben for being here and giving us these insight on the sale. And thank you to everyone in the chat for getting involved, getting your opinions across, and being interactive. We really do appreciate you. No matter what's happening with United, whether we're losing, whether there's problems off the pitch, which there always seems to be, it feels like a soap opera. This community is unmatched, and we send all of our love out there to you guys. So thank you to everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day. Stay tuned, and I'll see you on the next one, everyone.